Sarah Chen stared at her broken leg with what could only be described as mild annoyance, as if she'd merely stubbed her toe rather than had it crushed under an alien tank. The Zyx'karian commander looming over her couldn't quite process her reaction. In his species' military history, such an injury would have any warrior howling in agony, begging for death. But this human? She was laughing. "You know," Sarah mused, casually propping herself up on her elbows, "I once broke 3 ribs during a soccer match and still finished the game." This, she gestured at her mangled leg. "This is just Tuesday." The Zyx'karian's compound eyes twitched in confusion. Their intelligence had clearly failed them spectacularly. These humans weren't the soft, fragile creatures they'd been led to believe. The commander watched in horrified fascination as Sarah reached for her medkit. "Oh good, still got some ibuprofen left. Want to see something that'll really bake your space brain, big guy?" What followed would forever change the Zyx'karian understanding of human physiology, pain tolerance, and their deeply misguided invasion plans. It started with Sarah demonstrating the concept of walking it off, a mystifying human practice that seemed to defy several laws of biology. It ended with an entire alien armada retreating in terror after discovering that humans could, quite literally, keep fighting with injuries that would kill most species 3 times over. The story spread through the galactic community like wildfire how a single human's broken leg led to the most embarrassing military retreat in Zyx'karian history. Not because of the injury itself, but because they discovered that humans had evolved on a death world so harsh that they'd developed the ability to essentially ignore what other species considered catastrophic damage and laugh about it. Sarah's legendary response to their surrender request became required reading in xenobiology courses across the galaxy. "Listen, I've got 2 options here. I can either lie here feeling sorry for myself, or I can get up and kick your insectoid behind with my good leg. And buddy, I've been having a really bad day, so guess which one I'm picking." The humans had a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." The Zyx'karians learned the hard way that what merely inconveniences a human would definitely kill most other species. And the truly terrifying part: the humans found this hilarious. Sarah became something of an unwitting ambassador after that. Alien military strategists would come to her for insights, only to leave more confused than ever as she regaled them with stories of human children bouncing back from broken bones, athletes playing through injuries that should have been fatal, and the general human tendency to treat grievous bodily harm as a minor inconvenience. But how do you endure such pain? A Zyx'karian medical officer once asked her during a diplomatic summit. Sarah shrugged, adjusting her crutches. "Spite, mostly. That, and we've got really good painkillers. Want to hear about the time I ran a marathon with a sprained ankle? Or better yet, let me tell you about this thing we call walking on hot coals for fun." The galaxy quickly learned an important lesson: never underestimate a species that treats potentially lethal injuries as an inconvenience and responds to pain with laughter. Because if that's how they handle being hurt, imagine what they're capable of when they're actually trying. The broken leg incident, as it came to be known, marked the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. The Zyx'karians, once proud would-be conquerors, became enthusiastic students of human resilience. They even started a research division dedicated to understanding how humans could possibly find humor in situations that would traumatize any reasonable species. Sarah, for her part, went on to establish an interstellar motivational speaking career, traveling the galaxy to share the uniquely human perspective on pain, persistence, and the therapeutic value of laughing in the face of adversity. Her talks always ended with the same line: "You know what's funnier than a human with a broken leg? A human with a broken leg who just beat an alien army. And trust me, we're always looking for new material for our stand-up routines." The galaxy never quite figured out if humans were incredibly brave or just fundamentally broken in the head. The humans never bothered to clarify. They were too busy turning their war stories into comedy specials. In the end, the greatest weapon humanity brought to the galactic stage wasn't their technology, their military might, or even their resilience. It was their ability to look at an objectively terrible situation, laugh, and then somehow make it worse for whoever had caused it. The Zyx'karians learned this lesson the hard way, and to this day, their training manuals include a special warning: if you hear a human laughing after you've injured them, retreat immediately. It's already too late. And Sarah? Well, she kept that piece of alien tank that crushed her leg. It makes for a great paperweight and an even better conversation starter at intergalactic dinner parties. Oh, that old thing? Let me tell you about the time I made an entire alien army question their life choices with nothing but a broken leg and some really bad jokes ... years after the infamous broken leg incident. The Galactic Council still struggled to create proper safety protocols for human integration into mixed species workplaces. The main issue wasn't protecting humans, it was preventing other species from having panic attacks when witnessing typical human behavior. For the last time, Sarah sighed, addressing the council from her podium, her formerly broken leg now adorned with a titanium enhancement she'd gotten just for fun. Humans don't need emergency medical evacuation for paper cuts. The Voltarian representative's tentacles curled in distress. But we observed one of your younglings continue playing after such an injury, without even basic pain management protocols. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. Yeah, they probably just put a Band-Aid on it. Maybe kissed it better if they're really young. Kissed it better. The collective gasp from the alien delegates nearly caused a pressure drop in the chamber. You apply oral contact to open wounds as a healing ritual. Look, Sarah leaned forward, grinning in that distinctly human way that made several species instinctively reach for their defensive appendages. Wait until you hear about our traditional rub some dirt on it technique. The resulting chaos required 3 hours to resolve and led to the creation of an entire new subsection of Galactic Medical Guidelines titled Understanding Human Medical Nonchalance, a Guide to Not Panicking. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humanity was having entirely too much fun with their newfound reputation. Extreme sports enthusiasts had taken to inviting alien observers to their events, resulting in what became known as the Great Fainting Incident of 2157. When a human snowboarder casually got up and walked away from what several alien medical professionals had assumed was certain death. The internet was flooded with reaction videos of aliens watching humans do everyday things. The Aliens React to Hockey Fights channel had more subscribers than most news networks. The episode where they showed alien observers footage of the running of the bulls had to be censored in several star systems for being too traumatic. Sarah's speaking tours now included a segment called Things Humans Do for Fun that make aliens question our sanity. Hot pepper eating contests were always a crowd favorite, especially after she explained that humans deliberately bred the peppers to be more painful to consume. You created chemical weapons. As a food source, a horrified Zyx'karian scientist had asked during one presentation. Oh, it gets better, Sarah had replied with a wicked grin. We then turned it into a competition to see who can eat the most painful ones without crying. The footage of that explanation was now required viewing in xenopsychology courses, usually accompanied by several pages of context explaining that yes, humans were actually serious about this. But perhaps the most significant change came in how the galaxy approached warfare. The Zyx'karian military had completely restructured their combat doctrine after analyzing human battle footage. Their new primary directive: if humans start treating grievous injuries as minor inconveniences, retreat immediately. If humans start making jokes about their injuries, retreat faster. If humans start comparing injuries with each other like they're trading collectible cards, abandon the entire star system. The Galactic Defense Force created a special classification for human soldiers' trauma response inverse standard. It was the only species-specific designation that included the warning: caution, combat effectiveness may increase following injury due to what they refer to as getting really pissed off now. Sarah's personal favorite development was the creation of the human durability scale used by alien species to rate various activities. It ranged from concerning but standard human behavior, playing contact sports, to absolutely not, what is wrong with you people, free solo climbing. During one particularly memorable council session, Sarah had to explain the concept of walking off injuries to a panel of alien medical experts. The resulting report, titled Human Medical Anomaly: The Therapeutic Application of Ignoring the Problem, became the most cited paper in xenobiology that year. But what about the pain was still the most common question she got during her talks. Pain is just weakness leaving the body, she'd quote, watching alien physiologists frantically taking notes. Or, as we like to say in the military, if you can still make jokes about it, you can still fight through it. This usually led to at least one alien representative requiring emotional support counseling. The human tendency to name their injuries had particularly captivated alien sociologists. Sarah's own enhanced leg, which she'd named Tanky in honor of what caused it, had its own social media following. She'd even gotten fan art from various species depicting her leg in increasingly epic battles against alien war machines. The Zyx'karians, in a stunning reversal of their former conquering aspirations, had become the galaxy's foremost experts in human psychology. Their latest research paper, The Paradoxical Correlation Between Human Injury Severity and Humor Production, had won several prestigious awards, though most of the galaxy found its conclusions too terrifying to contemplate. As for Sarah, she'd recently taken up extreme sports to have some fun stories for my next tour. The resulting footage of her skydiving with her enhanced leg had to be classified as a potential psychological weapon in several star systems. You know what the real joke is, she often said during her presentations, usually while doing something that made alien safety officers need to lie down. We're actually holding back most of the time. Wait until the galaxy finds out about what human children do on playgrounds. The subsequent explanation of walking it off as a standard human medical treatment had led to the creation of no fewer than 17 new galactic medical protocols, most of which could be summarized as just let the humans handle it their way. Trust us on this one. And somewhere in a Zyx'karian military archive, there's still that first report from the commander who witnessed Sarah laugh off her broken leg. It's marked with a simple notation that has since become standard procedure across the galaxy when dealing with injured humans. If they're making jokes, we're in trouble. If they name their injury, retreat immediately. If they start comparing it to that one time when, evacuate the star system. And whatever you do, never ever tell them something is impossible while they're injured. They take it as a personal challenge. The report ends with what has become the unofficial motto of alien medical professionals treating humans: they're not actually immortal. They just haven't figured that out yet. And we're all too scared to tell them. The most unexpected consequence of humanity's casual relationship with injury came in the form of interstellar entertainment. The galaxy had become obsessed with what they called human survival documentaries. Though humans insisted on calling them reality TV shows and fail compilations, Sarah found herself consulting on a Zyx'karian production titled Understanding Human Recreational Activities: A Survival Guide. The first episode, focused on something as simple as human children's playgrounds, had to be aired with a warning crawler at the bottom of the screen. No human children were harmed in the making of this documentary. Yes, they do this for fun. No, we don't understand either. But they're falling. A Zyx'karian producer chittered anxiously during the editing process. From heights. That's what the mulch is for, Sarah explained, watching footage of kids jumping from the monkey bars. Though when I was young, we just had concrete. Built character. The producer had to take a mental health day after that revelation. The human concept of recreational danger had spawned an entirely new field of xenopsychology. Dr. K. Tal's groundbreaking paper, The Human Phenomenon of Hold My Beer: A Study in Voluntary Risk Escalation, was required reading in most diplomatic training programs. The fascinating aspect, Dr. K. Tal wrote, is not just their ability to survive what should be fatal injuries, but their tendency to immediately attempt even more dangerous activities afterward, often while still injured from their previous attempt. Sarah's legendary broken leg had inspired a new fashion trend among human military personnel: decorative prosthetics and enhanced limbs featuring designs that commemorated how they lost the original. Her own Tanky had started the trend with its custom paint job depicting the alien tank that had crushed it, complete with a cartoon-style squish effect that made Zyx'karian veterans need to sit down whenever they saw it. The galactic medical community had finally given up on trying to apply standard triage protocols to humans after the marathon incident. A human runner had finished an entire marathon with what was later discovered to be a fractured femur, stopping only to ask if anyone had any ibuprofen because they had a bit of a twinge. How do you define a bit of a twinge? An alien medical officer had asked during the subsequent investigation. Oh, you know, the runner had shrugged. Like when you break your leg but you've only got 2 miles left to go. No point quitting when you're that close to the finish line. The official medical report had been amended to include a new diagnostic category specifically for humans. Patients' assessment of injury severity should be multiplied by a factor of 1,000. The Galactic Council had recently established a new department, the Human Activity Safety Assessment Division, or HFY. Their primary function was to evaluate human recreational activities and categorize them on a scale from marginally comprehensible to why would anyone do this voluntarily. Parkour had broken their classification system entirely. They do this without being chased, a HFY analyst had asked Sarah during a consultation. Sometimes we chase each other just to make it more interesting, she'd replied cheerfully, causing 3 junior analysts to request immediate transfers. The Zyx'karians, still trying to understand their one-time adversaries, had developed a complex mathematical formula to predict human behavior in crisis situations. The key variable was labeled S for spite level. And it worked on an inverse relationship. The more likely a human was to die from an injury, the more likely they were to ignore it out of sheer stubbornness. Sarah had been asked to review the formula. Her only feedback was adding a multiplier for when humans were told something was impossible. You have to account for the "oh yeah? Watch this" factor, she explained to the research team. It's basically spite squared. The formula had proven surprisingly accurate, particularly in predicting how long it would take an injured human to attempt whatever had injured them again, but better this time. The Galactic community had also had to revise their understanding of human medical practices after learning about the concept of physical therapy, or as Sarah liked to describe it to alien audiences, deliberately re-injuring yourself in controlled conditions to get stronger. You intentionally stress damaged body parts, a Voltarian medical researcher had asked during a symposium. Well, yes, Sarah had replied, demonstrating with her enhanced leg. How else are you going to convince it to work properly? You've got to show it who's boss. The resulting paper, Intimidation as a Human Medical Treatment, Understanding the Practice of Walking It Off, had caused quite a stir in the xenomedicine community. But perhaps the most profound impact came in the form of the galaxy's revised understanding of human entertainment. The discovery that humans regularly participated in activities like boxing, which Sarah described as getting punched in the face for fun and profit, had led to a complete overhaul of galactic sports safety regulations. The footnotes now included a simple addendum human section: just try to make sure they don't die. Beyond that, they're on their own. The Intergalactic Olympics Committee had to create a separate human division for most sports after other species complained that competing against humans was essentially competing against beings who ignored what should be performance-limiting injuries. It's not fair, a Zyx'karian athlete had protested after losing a running event to a human with a sprained ankle. They get stronger when they're hurt. How do you compete with that? Sarah, now serving as humanity's unofficial ambassador of explaining their weirdness to the galaxy, had recently begun working on a book. Pain is just weakness leaving the body and other things that make aliens question our sanity. Early reviews from alien critics all seemed to include some variation of the phrase horrifyingly informative. The book's chapter on human children's games had to be heavily edited after the first draft caused a diplomatic incident. Apparently, the concept of playing chicken was too much for some species to handle. As Sarah often said during her lectures, the funny thing is, we're not even trying to be tough. This is just what happens when you evolve on a death world and decide the best response is to point and laugh at danger. And somewhere in the galaxy, a Zyx'karian commander is still trying to explain to his superiors how he lost a battle to a laughing human with a broken leg. His reports now include a new standard warning for all military personnel. Remember, if a human is hurt and making jokes, you're not winning. You're about to become part of a story they'll tell at parties for years to come. And trust me, you don't want to be that story. 10 years after the infamous broken leg incident, Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council one last time, her legendary enhanced leg gleaming under the chamber lights. She was retiring from her role as humanity's chief explainer of why humans are like that. As my final act, she announced to the assembled delegates, I'd like to propose a new galactic classification system for species. The council chamber hummed with anticipation. Sarah's proposals were always entertaining, if somewhat traumatic. Instead of Class 1 through 5 death worlds, I suggest we simply have 2 categories: humans and everyone else who has common sense about self-preservation. The motion passed unanimously, if only because everyone was too afraid to vote against the species that treated compound fractures as minor inconveniences. As she packed up her office in the Galactic Embassy, Sarah smiled at her collection of mementos. The piece of Zyx'karian tank that had crushed her leg sat proudly on her desk, now serving as both paperweight and conversation piece. She'd added googly eyes to it years ago, much to the continued distress of Zyx'karian diplomats. Her retirement party was an interesting affair. The human attendees swapped injury stories like trading cards, while the alien guests required a dedicated team of emotional support counselors just to make it through the conversations. Remember that time on Proxima B one of her human colleagues laughed when you challenged their champion to a hopping contest right after getting your leg enhanced? The poor guy resigned from the military. Sarah grinned. Last I heard, he became a poet. Writes exclusively about the existential terror of watching humans ignore physics and common sense. As she prepared to leave, a young Zyx'karian approached her, mandibles twitching nervously. She recognized him as the son of the commander from that fateful day. "Is it true?" he asked. "Did you really laugh when your leg was crushed by our tank?" "Oh, honey," Sarah patted him on what she hoped was his shoulder. "I didn't just laugh. I made a pun about getting a leg up in the battle." Your father's eye twitch lasted for weeks. The Galactic Council erected a statue of Sarah outside their headquarters, or more specifically, a statue of her broken leg, complete with a plaque that read in honor of the injury that taught the galaxy that humans are, in technical terms, built different. The statue became a traditional site for alien species to visit before entering into any agreements with humans. The unofficial motto became, "Look upon this monument, ye aliens, and reconsider your life choices." Sarah's final book, Sorry About Your Tank, A Human's Guide to Accidentally Traumatizing Aliens, became required reading in diplomatic training across the galaxy. The chapter titled Why Humans Think Near-Death Experiences Make Great Party Stories had to be packaged with stress relief medication. On her last day, she left a simple message in the council records. To all future alien species considering Earth, yes, we're like this all the time. No, we don't know why. Yes, we think it's funny. No, we're not going to change. Yes, we're probably doing something you'd consider insane right now. And remember, if you ever see a human laugh after getting hurt, run. Not because you're in danger, but because you're about to become the setup to a joke they'll tell for the next 50 years. As she boarded her ship home, Sarah heard a young alien ask their parent, "But why did the humans evolve to be so resilient?" A nearby human engineer answered before anyone could stop them, "Oh, that's the neat part, we didn't. We just decided that getting hurt was inconvenient and collectively agreed to ignore it out of spite." The resulting panic took 3 hours to calm down. Years later, the galaxy still used the broken leg scale to measure potential crisis situations. Level 1 was normal danger and level 5 was a human is laughing. While injured, there was also a theoretical level 6, multiple humans comparing injuries competitively. But most species agreed that at that point, evacuation was the only sensible response. Sarah's enhanced leg ended up in the Galactic Museum of Historical Significance, in a wing dedicated to items that made aliens question everything they thought they knew about biology. Next to it sat a simple sign. Humans, the species that taught the galaxy that anything is possible, if you're too stubborn to realize it should be impossible. And somewhere in deep space, that original Zyx'karian commander still wakes up in cold sweats, remembering the sound of human laughter echoing across a battlefield, the universal signal that somewhere, somehow, a human has decided to turn injury into entertainment. The galaxy never did figure out if humans were incredibly brave or just really bad at risk assessment. The humans never bothered to clarify. They were too busy doing something that would give their alien friends anxiety attacks. As for Sarah, she took up extreme sports in her retirement. For old time's sake, she said, while base jumping from orbit. The resulting footage had to be classified as a psychological weapon in 12 star systems.